to the Wisdom with Wiebke podcast, where I interview different people about their definition and relationship with spirituality, to give you a glimpse of the unique ways of how to live and integrate spirituality in your life. Welcome, Domen, to today's podcast episode. I'm very excited to have you finally on the podcast. And we have met before 1.5 years ago at an Eckhart retreat in Canada. That was the first meeting. And we stayed in contact. And then we saw us again this year in another Eckhart retreat. And it was amazing. We had a great time. We talked a lot about spiritualism, obviously. And I know that you have studied other spiritual teachings as well. So I'm super hyped and interested to have you on the podcast today. And yeah, just introduce yourself quickly to the listeners so that they get a better picture of who you are as well. Thank you.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me, Vipka. It's, I'm excited to be here. And this is, in terms of an introduction, I guess my name is Domen. I'm from Slovenia. It's this little country next to Italy and Austria and Croatia and Hungary. I usually leave out Hungary, but, I left it in this time around. I just, everyone knows Italy, so I say Italy. Okay, Americans especially, they can pinpoint me somewhere. So I'm 33 years old, and what do I do? I help companies and startups with their growth efforts. So that's marketing, and it's also more holistically because growth is a little bit more than just marketing. So that's what I've been doing for the past 15 years. And I just became a father as well to my daughter Oti. She's now 3 months old, and I got married this year. And I recently worked for Eckhart Tolle for the past 2 years. I led his team, so his online stuff, courses and programs and stuff like that, and the subscription business he has. And now I took a little bit of a pause because of my daughter, and I'm not sure where I'm going next. So I'm in a mid phase or in between phase, and I like these phases because it allows me to recreate myself, and I think that's good enough for now. Oh, I used to play volleyball, and used to be a sports person. Not much anymore, and that's it probably for now.
You are very tall, so I can tell that to the listeners. So it makes total sense that you did that.
Yeah,
And
it does make
thank
sense.
you for the introduction, and also lots of life changes. Congrats again to the baby and for the marriage or the wedding. And then also,
Thank you.
yeah, amazing that you take like a sabbatical or kind of a mid phase. I think those phases, I took them a lot, and they're always very exciting because it's the unknown, and from the unknown, so many miracles or really great opportunities can come up. And when we pause and just reflect and look within, then lots of things will come to you. So amazing. I'm glad to have you.
Yeah.
And let's start with my favorite question. I always ask everyone, what does spirituality mean to you?
That's a good question.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. I think at a base level, it means the state in which you're in. That would be the base one. Just the state of myself, whatever myself is. That base state, that would be, I guess, the first thing that pops up. Yeah. Less mental, more the base state of my whole being. So the body, and if I just close my eyes, it would be just the whole of whatever I feel could be myself. if I go into the head, it's it's the name, it's the job, the position, where I'm from. It's all that kind of. So when you ask who I am in an introduction, that's really the surface introduction of yeah. Well, that's who I thought. That's my thinking about myself. That's my experience. That's my nationality. But really, it's spirituality would be my state of self, state of being. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my first instinct.
Yeah, always go with the first instinct. Sounds
Yeah.
great. And the state, like you described it a little bit, if you would want to describe it to someone who's never felt that before, how would you describe it? Like the state you're in without the mind kind
Yeah.
of taking over.
Yeah. I think before you're in this state, I think before you're in this state, see, it's I think
Yeah.
you're thinking about it, and it might be you might feel that when people describe it, or it's in a book somewhere, it might be this idea of dissolution that you dissolve, everything dissolves, it becomes this mush. When they talk about oneness and all that,
Hmm.
and that okay, everything kind of warps, like if you're on some sort of drug. If you've had any, those who've had taken LSD and stuff like that, they might have had this kind of experience where you're absorbed, you're just you vanish. That I guess might be the what you think about might be when you feel in the state of, well, Eckhart would call it presence, being so that's, and then when it happens, I guess if you're on substances, it might be kind of that pulsating and you disappear. But for me, at least in a wakeful normal state, it's just more I'm in this room and I just see more things more clearly. They're more three-dimensional, if you want. Because if I'm thinking and I'm not here, then it's all two-dimensional. It's more flat. And now when I'm putting my presence on the outside, I feel okay. I'm in this room, and time kind of still stops or even vanishes because I'm just here in this room. And sometimes doing this with another person is much easier because I've had this experience often when I was in somewhere with and I met somebody who knows or who's a little bit into spirituality or a lot into spirituality. And we started talking and we started talking about presence, and then we started kind of locking in a little bit. And then I said, I get, I said a cue or something, or I said, look, do you feel this now? And we were just silent for a couple of seconds. And then, okay, that was it. It was just maybe even a half a minute or maybe even a minute. We were just just present with each other. And so nothing kind of extraordinary because we've all had presence before. I'm looking at my daughter now, and people keep saying, "Whoa, I wonder what she's thinking." I'm saying, "Well, she's not thinking anything. She's just absorbing. She's in a state of pure presence." It's like kind of what Eckhart does. He's like this. You see him, or you meet him, and he's those who are not present are, or well, in their body, let's say it in their body, less spiritual, maybe in terms of speaking about it, less mystical. They're they're here, right? They're in here. Uh, so I look at my daughter, and she's just observing, taking in the impressions and she's not thinking. She's embodied. She's presence embodied. She's in flow with everything. She's not defined yet. Well, she's defined to a certain degree because she's genetics and all that and whatever, but still, uh, she doesn't think, she doesn't judge, she doesn't say this is a lamp, this is, well, I've seen this lamp 100 times, I don't need to even look at it anymore, and that this plant here or over there. So and it reminds me of that story of a Buddhist monk or something, where somebody asked him, he was apparently awakened, and somebody asked him, well, how is it? And he said, well, I'm still angry, and I still get depressed, and I still, get stressed, but I feel just a little bit above ground, just like I'm floating a little bit. uh, I think that's kind of the impression. And then, of course, because I'm not Eckhart Tolle or some an awakened being, I guess it happens, and then it doesn't happen every day, on off, on off, on off. Wait, I'm here again. Okay, I need to, okay, need to step back. And I guess the goal would be, if there's a goal, would be to try to be uh, in this state more and more, because this is, even from a perspective of what's good for you, this might be the best state to be in, because you can still do. And also, in the past, when I started on this journey, it was okay. Wait, it's either this or that. It's either I'm in the state, or I'm just in the state of doing and rushing and thinking. But there should be a joining together. Even somebody like Eckhart Tolle, he does stuff. He goes on retreats, and he teaches. He's not opposed to doing things. He's not an Indian type of guru, when they have this kind of thing where they just want to become nothingness. They try to, through meditating, and it's kind of like this stone Buddha idea. Now he's a living being. He lives. He does things, but he does it from a perspective of presence, so that he doesn't get lost in his mind and projections and fears and anxieties and all kinds of programs that just are figments of this production set here. Keeps producing images and fears and projections of all kinds of things, where in fact I'm just in a room sitting on my chair talking to a weepke. That's all. And even that's characterizing it. Anyway, I forgot what the question was.
I think you did it really, I think you did it really well, because I asked you about how would you describe it to someone else who
Oh
hasn't
yeah.
been in the States. So you did that super well. I could follow you, and I really liked how you described that things that look more flat around you kind
Hmm.
of pop out more. Like, you didn't use the word pop out, but you said it's more three-dimensional. Um,
Yes.
and I feel that way too, as in things I would focus on, they appear more brilliant or a bit more beautiful.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
even a lamp
Hmm.
I looked at 100 times
Hmm.
before, I'd be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
isn't this neat?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
totally relate with you there. And I love that you have your own spiritual teacher at home, basically. You can look at
She
and
is.
get the
She
presence
is.
from. Because
Yeah.
I do that sometimes when I'm in a cafe. I would look at kids and how they play, and you can really get
Yeah.
lost in there because it's so
Yeah.
fascinating how they go about life. So I'm so glad you have that at home, because
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people I talk with who have kids, they say they're the biggest teachers for them to take life a bit more lightly and with joy and with that curiosity you were looking
Yeah.
like Eckhart sometimes looks like as well, with those big eyes. And
Yeah.
for those who
Yeah.
didn't see. So yeah, I really like it. And I know, but I could also hear now that you have kind of researched a lot about spiritualism, or like different kind of teachers or gurus or whatever you want to
Mm-hmm.
call it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my question there is, what was it that drove you to research so much? And then also, with whom did you kind of resonate most or
Mm-hmm.
connect most?
Yeah. Yeah. So, first of all, first was the why. What was the motivator? That was, I guess it was about 10 years ago, 2014, yes. I was in a startup, high growth startup, very stressful. I didn't take a vacation for almost 3 years. Actually, I took 3 days after I told them, well, guys, I haven't been on vacation for 3 days. no, not a single day in 2 years plus. The boss said, okay, well, I'm sending you to and he sent me on his personal expense to some spa somewhere in Austria for 2 days. Okay, it was 2 days. All right, and I was drained because this was such a high-paced environment that me as a 21-year-old, when I stepped into it, was just too much. And I didn't know anything about kind of balancing your energy and, using up adrenaline as an energy source, and then that kind of depletes you. And I was ambitious to a degree that, I wanted to become the richest man in my country. That was my goal at 19 or 20. So I could go into this why, but it doesn't matter. That was my goal. So I went on this journey, and then I get with this startup that had a tremendous success in terms of business and all that kind of thing. Exactly what I wanted, but of course, in this projecting these things, I didn't really account for all the negative aspects that come from it. And I only saw this, okay, I want to become rich. Doesn't matter why, all of that. And then, okay, this started crumbling down the whole story, and then exhaustion. And then I found, I think Eckhart Tolle was one of the teachers that came across at that time that opened my eyes. And I didn't start with The Power of Now. I started with A New Earth, which is still my favorite of both. That's clearly a favorite to me. I don't relate to The Power of Now. I mean, I relate to the idea, but in terms of the book, for me, A New Earth was just okay, so good. And although I think I read The Power of Now first, but anyway, that was wait, what's he on about? What's this present moment? What is this? What's like explaining water to a fish. Okay, and then so from this very success oriented person, I then went the complete opposite way for a while. So the pendulum swing was to the other end of it. And for years, really, I was kind of in that zone, and diving into all kinds of teachers and teachings. And now, for the past couple of years, I've been trying to find this middle way. And Buddha and all kinds of teachers teach about the golden mean, or the middle way, and all that. And I'm getting it more and more, what it means, because being on either end is not. I think this whole spirituality as a mind idea is not the solution, where you're just, well, I'm thinking about spirituality. Whereas it should be a state of being that I can still function in life, and I can have a business, I can operate, I can work on stuff, because why not? I'm here in this, because that's part of spirituality. It's playfulness, it's creativity. A kid is spiritual but doesn't know it. A kid plays in the sandbox, it explores, learns. That's the best. That's what I would describe spirituality as. Look at a kid, that's spirituality. It's not here in the mind. He's just exploring the world, and he's not judgmental, and he's playful, childlike. And so, okay, embodying that would be the middle way, where I can really also be of service to the world. I'm not of service to the world, maybe being in my own apartment and just walking around the park every day and just, oh, well, okay. Sure, I've seen the birds, I can see the birds, but I'm still missing maybe what's my purpose as well. Sure, from somebody like Eckhart, the purpose would be to go from here to there. And that's good. That's the base layer. I'm going from here. My purpose right now is just speaking to you, nothing else. It's just speaking with you, having that's my purpose right now. It's nothing else. But then, okay, there's also the part of being incarnated here in this world, and I guess I can play. Why not? If I'm not playing, then I stopped playing, And I started down the quest of why did I stop playing? And there was fear involved. I became fearful. And then I also judgmental about myself. Wait, well, you had this idea. We wanted to become this rich man. That's bad. That's not good. You shouldn't be rich. You should. That's greed and all that. And to some degree, it's true, of course. But there's also other things in here. And then if you go to this other extreme, as I did, then uh, I started self-judging and self censoring myself in a way. So that okay, so that was how it started, and then progressed from this one end to the other end, and then the last years calibrating back and forth. But the pendulum kept swinging less and less, and towards where I'm finding a middle slowly. And the second question, Wipke, was
What other gurus, like you researched then, and what
yeah,
other
yeah, yeah.
gurus were there, or like spiritual teachers? Or you already mentioned the middle way, which I think is fascinating. Um, yeah, what else did you explore before you got to Eckhart Tolle? Or I mean, now we know it started with him even, and
Yeah,
you found
yeah.
back to it. What resonated with you?
So one thing also that comes to mind right now is that spirituality as an identity. That's what happened. Before I was, say, businessman. Then I was on a spiritual man. One identity switched for the other. Spiritual man looks a certain way, acts a certain way, has long hair or something. I don't know. Has a doesn't have a tie, right? So it's just all kinds of roles we play that we don't realize. And I think the answer here is okay. I need to realize I'm playing this role, and that actually a spiritual person can be a man in a tie or a woman in a tie. They can have a tie. Doesn't matter. They can drive a Porsche, or they can be horseback or walking. That has nothing to do with spirituality. It's just outside of appearance. So I guess that's the first where people go first often is this, okay, I'm just going to grab another identity. And then they play by those rules. And they might even think, which I think I did, was, well, I'm more now than before. Look at all these business people. I'm now a spiritual person. It's just another game the ego plays. So that, yeah, ego spirituality is, I think, pretty prominent, and has been getting more and more prominent because it's a very easy game to play. I can also drop a lot of my responsibilities and say, well, it's all one. It doesn't matter, whatever, blah blah blah. It's all these ideas that, well, we're all gonna we're all one. I don't need to take responsibility, personal responsibility for myself. All kinds of ideas come forth. So that's a very strong takeaway from these past 10 years. In terms of teachers, I really resonated with a couple of people. Eckhart Tolle, of course. Then two more, I would say. One is Anthony De Mello. He's wonderful. And then Alan Watts, I really resonated with him as well, because well, also because his voice is amazing, and his English, and so, and all those YouTube, it's just for a couple, maybe for 2 years, all I listened to was Alan Watts in the evenings or before going to bed. I just, yeah, he was great, and the way he explained duality and all that, and it's a bit different. He was more rational from that perspective, but I liked it, and I also went some weird ways for a while, like Osho and stuff like that. But that, in retrospect, looking at it back right now, that's not the spirituality I want to engage in Osho and stuff. And of course, he was a douchebag. So there's just we need to what the things he did and all that was just bad. So there's a caution to be had with especially young people who go in down this road of spirituality, of these fake gurus and all, and gurus, and what is it even is a guru, and all these could be cults. There's all kinds of traps and dangers. Of course, the number one trap is in your mind, not even outside, and that's some of the stuff I touched upon in the last couple of minutes. Yeah. I hope I answered at least part of your question.
Yes, brilliant. Thank you. And I appreciate the pendulum at the beginning because I feel lots of people wish they could just wake up one day like Eckhart or other people, like Byron
Hmm.
Katie or so, and then they're awakened
Hmm.
and then life is bliss. But for a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
others,
yeah,
it's the pendulum, right? It's like going back and
yeah,
forth and you kind of figure things out. And sometimes you awaken a little bit more, you go through things and you're like, oh wow, we'll never do that again. And then you fall
yeah,
asleep again and you do it again.
yeah,
And that's a lesson too.
yeah,
But that's the
yeah,
that's the whole bliss in life that you have that pendulum. And as you said now, the swing is not so big anymore. Like you don't fall
yeah,
asleep or fall below consciousness, let's call it that way, so much anymore. It's
yeah,
little bit, and you get closer and closer. And
yeah,
um,
yeah.
so I think that's great how you described that. Thank you for that.
You're
And
welcome.
I also liked, uh, I love Anthony De Mello. I just finished his book.
Mhm.
It's great.
Which
And
one?
I really like, it was about
Oh,
something with returning to
awareness.
love, something with
Hmm.
love. I have to look it up.
Hmm.
I'll put it on the podcast then for people who want to maybe read it as well. I
Hmm.
really like his straight ways. Like he kind of shakes you up
Yeah, yeah. He,
with
he
with
does. He
how
does.
he thinks. I like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
A bit more shock kind of therapy. And
Hmm.
then Alan Watts, I resonate a lot with as well. He does have a really great voice, and you can find more songs now as well where people put his voice in songs. It's just great.
Hmm. Hmm.
Very
Hmm.
wise man. So I like his
Yeah.
wisdom. So I can resonate with that as well. And I like that you like I find it fascinating that you didn't give up. You know, you're like when we sometimes when we swing back, and it's so
Hmm.
easy to say and get rid of all the responsibility because well we all won anyway, and then but then
Hmm.
you continued and you went that way again, and
Hmm.
the more uncomfortable way maybe. So I think that's fascinating about you, but also human being as such.
Hmm.
And what I
Hmm.
also really liked was that you said, well, I loved so much what you said. But one thing that stuck out was that Eckhart is also doing. So he's not just
Hmm.
being. So it's
Hmm.
totally fine because lots of people think, well, when I'm awakened or when I'm that spiritual person, everything just flows to me and I can just be. And yeah, maybe that's the way you want to go. That's fine.
Yeah,
But if
yeah,
you someone who want to actively change something in the world or do something good, as in
yeah.
bringing that spirit into your business as you did and working for
Hmm.
Eckhart and all that, bring that
Hmm.
consciousness and how can I apply that? I think that's amazing. And yeah, just making people aware of you can wear a tie and you still can be a spiritual person and you don't need to have
Yeah,
long hair.
yeah.
That's what the podcast is about, to like wake up people. You don't have to be a certain way to be considered for
Hmm.
yourself spiritual. You can, even if you
Hmm.
don't do anything. Like if you don't meditate, if you don't whatever, you can still be spiritual the way you act in life and the way with your kindness or whatever, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
loved all of that. Thanks so much. You really went deep into that. And I guess, yeah, my question would be right now, uh, where are you in that kind of pendulum swing right now? Being in the
Hmm.
pause and having your child around, what would
Yeah.
you describe it? How does it feel for you right now?
Good. That's a very good question. So I would say two things are happening. One is pendulum swing going towards the doing more,
Hmm.
but also going into more of a depth because it's a necessity. Otherwise, the whole thing, if so. when I'm try at least for me, when I'm trying to do some new push, some new adventure, something in a new direction, there will come stuff that I have not acknowledged yet, or I did, or it's still there, some remnants of it, and so of course it keeps these things come up, whatever it is. It's also all kinds of programs, fears, anxieties, sadness, emotions. All these things come up. So if I'm pushing in a doing state and I'm trying to birth something new in my life, like a new business or whatever, new path, then these barriers will present themselves, and these barriers are, well, that's the way. It's I go inside of me, invite more presence, and see what is this, observe myself, and then that's the way to go forward, because going forward is easy doing the tactical stuff. Okay, I need to do 1 2 3 4 5 7 things. This is the plan. 1 2, it's easy. But then when you have to do it, then why can't I do what's happening here? And then that's the confrontation with something that's happening inside you. So then that's the path within that the outer stuff happens. Kind of this mirror idea. The outer world is a mirror of your inner state, and it's true, because in a second I can look at a situation and I can change my state. Oh, that's not that bad anymore. Whereas maybe a moment before it was horrible. So that's a mirror, because I see the world in certain colors. I color it. I water. I color a plant. Metaphorically speaking, I'm adding stuff to things. Of course, it's half automatic. It's programmed. So okay, if I catch myself doing that, and then okay, I'll have to look at it from a different angle, and then I change that perspective, then of course that the whole mirror thing happens. It doesn't mean that the world adapts to you. From you would have there are ideas like that, but it just means I look at a situation like this, and it's 45 degrees different.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's happening more, both inside and pushing as well, in terms of it's a more doing, and also it's both. It's both things are happening. Of course, the pendulum swing was from this one perspective of I'm just doing, and I'm only absorbed in doing, towards just being. And then okay, I guess it's pretty middle way right now, so it's not
Mm.
swinging that much anymore. But I have a very active mind, so that's a challenge. It's I can Ideas can just be like a stream through me that doesn't end.
Mm.
So that's the majority of things I think about. It's not what did I do, blah, blah, blah. It's not those let's call it just repetitive things, or calling myself an idiot or something in my head. That's not the majority of just is new ideas just keep coming up. It's like, oh, oh my God, okay. So that's the main thing that happens in my mind. It's like it's so fast. It is a curse. It is a blessing and a curse at the same time, because I can really be imaginative. I have an insane imagination. I can do great things with that. But also then it's okay. Then I really need to go into my body and relax, just in the being. That's my
Mm.
challenge. It's not that much at least anymore, of having the same repetitive programs. Uh, I recognize them much faster these days. I see, okay, it's fear. Don't bullshit me. It's fear. That's what. Don't tell me something that it is not. I can see much faster to the source of whatever it is that I'm trying to do something, and I'm bullshitting myself for a second, and then okay, no. I see what's happening. I see why I don't want to push that button or something. Send that email, whatever the tactical thing is.
Mm.
There's a much quicker path towards the pain, the whatever happened in my life, whatever was an impression from the past, a fear and something anxious, that I can then much quicker pull to the to consciousness and okay and more readily analyze it. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, so I can be very hyperactive with my brain.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that you are, because some people like to hide that,
Yeah.
like that part of themselves and be like, "Oh, I'm doing lots of work." And I can hear that you are in the middle of a lot of inner work by the
Mm-hmm.
sounds of it, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And those times where we are more in being, having that challenge that you have so many ideas coming to your mind and still being observant of it. And you say you
Mm-hmm.
are much faster with it now. Like something shows up
Mm-hmm.
and you observe it, which sounds
Mm-hmm.
great. Like I'm so glad to hear that because that
Mm-hmm.
takes, I know from self, that takes a lot of work, as at least it did for me, to be
Yeah.
able to recognize it in the moment when it comes and not act on it right away or send this email with the button, right?
Mm-hmm.
But more like
Mm-hmm.
pause and then be the observer of it. So yeah, I'm really glad to hear that you're doing the work because I think more people how to say it, how to frame it in English, the more people who do the work,
Yeah.
the better the new earth will be there, right?
Yes.
And some
Yes.
things I thought of when you were saying you're the mirror, kind of, or like
Mm-hmm.
you see what's inside of you in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I love the quote saying, "Be the change you want to see in the world," because when you
Yes.
change yourself and you look outside again, the world is changed, which is
It is
fantastic.
changed. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we all have our little worlds which we can change by just
Mm-hmm.
changing us and our perspective and how we see things and how we interpret things as being in
Mm-hmm.
one state, as you said. I can
Mm-hmm.
perceive it as beautiful or wonderful, and then being in another state and think that's horrible. So I
Yeah.
am kind of the creator of my own world
Mm-hmm.
by
Mm-hmm.
attaching to that thought or not, and or
Mm-hmm.
choosing a different thought. But being there in that state of being able to choose what you would like to think of and your state,
Yeah.
that's a mastery. So I'm glad you did, or
Yeah.
you're on that way and you're still continuing doing this.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I
Welcome.
guess
Thank you.
my next question brings us nearly to the end, and that would be, what is it right now you are passionate about, fascinated about? Are there any projects coming up? Is
Mm-hmm.
there something you'd like to passionately talk about before we
Mm-hmm.
kind of end this podcast episode?
Great question, Wipke. So obviously, I'm a father now to a 3 month old. So that's a that's a great passion.
Yeah.
It's not a project. You could call it a passion project, but that sounds not serious. So yeah, yeah. My daughter has brought so. First things that happened was it's like 3 years ago I got a dog, Ruby, and that made me instantly much more of a positive person. And
Mm,
looking towards the world in okay, what can I do to bring positivity? How can I help in terms of a positive direction, not a cynical negative direction? And where I live here in my country, we're quite a cynical people. So when that has if you live in a certain environment, that has a pull, right?
mm,
So it's a constant battle, and the dog was a very, very good upgrade. And then, of course, now we're talking about a 10x of that, where I see the okay, so my daughter is going to live for another 150 years, for example. I need to make sure that I can contribute in this mosaic of things that her life will be pretty, as much as good as possible, not
mm,
just from an internal perspective, what I can teach her and just, what I can just teach her passively and actively, but also for what can I help make so the difference outside as well. It's two things. So how she will cope with it, but also what happens outside. I'm a participant in this world and the shaping of it. I'm one of 8,200,000,000 something something people. It's a small percentage, yeah, 1 of 8 billion, but you can have an outsized effect. You can have a big effect if you really
Mm.
have a vision and strive for it. And for the past years, I went through this long journey of negativity and also cynicism and then of COVID kind of
Yeah.
accelerated that as well into the negative first before the
Mhm.
positive started coming out. Accelerated that journey for me. And so this leads me to the other thing is I'm very passionate about uh, alternative ways of doing say doing business
Mhm.
and living as well, of course. But because I am in business, I work with businesses, startups, and so on. That's my lane as of now, and I've been
Right.
in it for 15 years, and I'm seeing okay, what can I can either. Eckhart Tolle talked about this. He talked about enlightened companies, and I don't
Mm.
see many enlightened companies yet. But maybe the time is coming up where this can be more of a thing. And when I say enlightened companies, or when he said it, for me at least, that means a fairer, a much fairer distribution of outcomes, what versus what we have right now. At least in the startup world, we have this kind of a parasitic way where venture capital, the guys who have money, invest in startups, and then those startups supposedly have a mission to change the world. Some do, many don't, but it's kind of a nice thing to say. And then the success that they kind of garner is then really limited to a very small amount of people. It's those who invest, is the founders, is those people. And I guess that's the way the jungle works, right? It's the power of law, all distribution, all these kinds of things. But it's also an excuse, I would say. You can build systems that work differently. I'm not saying
Mm.
the whole capitalistic system, whatever. That's too big to handle. Maybe I can just focus on one thing and try to come up with a business model that is more equitable and shares the wealth effect between people who actually participate. Usually employees, they're employees, they get a salary and all that, and they're fine with it because they don't really know there's another option. Nobody's offering it. Very few are.
Mhm.
No, who's saying, "Well, come here, right? Here's a company. We're building a product, a great service for people that has a net good effect, but also you're also going to be a participant in the success of the story." It's very rare. So with startups, you've got some early employees get a little bit of a share, but then most people just don't get anything. And I'm thinking, okay, uh, I'm not a guy for socialism where everyone gets the same, but I am. So there's a next level of capitalism and socialism, uh, where you've got both the mechanics of capitalism and you've got also the mechanics of socialism. But it's an evolution of both, where
Mm.
it is still meritocracy, where those who contribute most get a larger kind of share in a way, but also that it takes care of people who are contributing. But it's more than just it. Also, it's not just about money. It's about how companies operate. Whereas companies, they serve, if it's a corporation, they serve shareholders. If it's a startup, they serve the venture capitalists, the people
Mhm.
who invested in them. So this whole the energy of the output of the people, and then what happens, it flows towards shareholders and investors. It doesn't flow that much back into the company itself, the people and the employees. uh, it's leaking. So this whole energy that these people, let's say 1,000 people in a corporation or 100 people in a startup, they generate this amount of energy because their creativity, that's all energy. And this company is kind of this it saves up energy, and then it grows and because through a product or service. And this energy, which is my, let's say I'm an employee, my attention and my creativity, my time is my energy put into this company. I'm getting a fraction of it back. The rest of
Mm.
it is going to somebody who just paid money for so that it grows. Because of course they want to have the highest amount return, and that's a pressure towards the company to do all kinds of things like cost cutting, not really investing in employees. Uh, so so that to me, we can just say, well, that's the way it is, blah blah blah, right? It's the structure we have right now. But it, it- how do you get from, we used to have, let's say, the corporation was not a thing yet, let's say 200 years ago, and then some people who wanted to do a certain thing like carry or I don't know, create a building or carry gold from one place to the other or something. They created the company, and that was very, it's a good thing. So I'm not against companies, but
Mm.
that was a good thing then. And then the stock market came a lot. It's all good. But maybe when is it time for us to make that step towards, well, as Eckhart Tolle would say, enlightened companies? It has to start with individuals who have a vision, and they want to say, look, I, as a founder, I'm good with earning $1 million in my whole. So instead, I don't need to have a billion. Why?
Mm.
So the whole, I think the system as it is greed based because everybody just wants more, and they're not realizing that. In fact, if you shared more with your employees, you would be a happier person because they
Mm.
would they would be happier. They would also pick up more of the load. You wouldn't be isolated here as the founder or something. You would not be beholden to everyone. So it would be a net positive for you as well. You,
Yeah.
whoever is invest or is you're an investor or something. Um, anyway, that's what I'm currently passionate about. It doesn't really have anything to do with
Yes.
my current profession of growth and marketing, but I love to
Well, a
think about
little,
these
I
a
think.
little, sure, it does
Yeah,
have, but I love to think
totally.
about these systems, and so far I have not yet been in a place to do something about it, or I
Mm.
just had various, again, internal states that did not allow me to do it.
Right.
So, but I believe in a timeline that's kind of a sacred timeline, if you want. So I believe it's
Hmm.
just exactly as it should be. I did not
Yes.
do it before because I was not ready. Just like I didn't start working for Eckhart Tolle in 2015, when I met him, talked to him, and then didn't go to an interview
Yeah.
to the States. It was right. And then 7 years later, I started working, for him.
Yeah.
7 years. So I think of it as a divine timeline. And if I'm getting these ideas, to me, that's a sign that I don't need to act on them. But it's
Hmm.
kind of also a thing like I believe we're all connected to this universal brain, consciousness, whatever. And these ideas are just out there floating. And if you can connect to them, it's whispering kind of. It's not even it's a whisper because it's not validated. It's not telling you, well, this is it, do it. It's ideas coming through. And I can imagine Tesla he had a strong access to these things. So he had a lab in his brain, and he got these visions and ideas, and he didn't know what am I thinking? Electricity? But imagine, just it's a
Yeah.
spark. It's a little idea, and then it grew and grew, and then it manifested through him into this world. So it's just
Right.
somebody will do it. Somebody does it.
Yes. And
But
who knows, maybe by you mentioning this,
yeah,
someone will listen and they might come to you because
exactly.
I'm gonna put your
Yeah.
LinkedIn and every kind of link you give me, I put it under the
Thank you.
podcast. So who knows what will happen? And I do believe
Yeah.
as well that you are in the perfect position or you're the right position where you are right now, and everything
Yeah.
will unfold in divine timing or whatever you want to call it, like the time wise. Um,
Hmm.
and I love also that you said things about like businesses, how they grew back then. that was right how it went then, because it was the
Mm-hmm.
way it's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be then. And now
Mm-hmm.
we're maybe in a state where we can think differently. We have different availability, like technology is available differently now. So we can do change it
Mm-hmm.
now. And so thank you for being and sharing your passion, sharing also some of your
Yeah.
expertise here, which I think everyone could hear now that you actually do something with growth and you know some
Mm-hmm.
things about like
Mm-hmm.
how to work with startups, which is great. So maybe even
Mm-hmm.
some startups will reach out and be like, hey, you know what? I do want to be like an
Yeah.
enlightened company. Who knows?
Yeah.
I wish you
Yeah.
lots of luck with that and all the best. I am so grateful to have you had on the podcast, sharing your wisdom with everyone and me included. And yeah, do you have any last words to say before we say goodbye?
Well, thank you again, Wiebke. It was more fun than I even imagined. It's just fun just talking about these things because before you speak it, you don't even know what you're going to speak. So it's kind of when somebody asks, then it's a platform to just
Right.
speak it. And I see that there's a lot going on here that I can speak about, and frankly, I kind of love doing this expressing the voice, the expressing myself, the throat, kind of, if you want, from a chakra perspective. Here's
Mm-hmm.
where I feel that I have a lot to work on, or
Mm.
that I have a passion to share these ideas. And haven't done that. I've done this through the years, but this really shows it shows me again that it's a kind of a passion to talk about ideas and to move things forward, to spark things into existence
Mm.
just through speaking. Like if somebody has
Amazing.
this, hears this, and he starts doing something in this direction, doesn't I don't need to be involved. Well, that's manifestation. So
Yes.
thank you for for this experience of the podcast and inviting me. Mm, yeah,
You're so welcome, and thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and I can't wait for all the
likewise.
comments and everyone who's listening to it, what they will take away from it. And yeah, just let us know as well. I'm always curious of hearing
Hmm.
what resonated with you, like the listeners, and maybe send it to a friend who benefits from this as well, and or maybe a business person who also still thinks that they have to be a certain way to be spiritual. So thank you all for
Hmm.
listening and thank you for your time, Domen. And we'll see you soon, probably.
Yeah, thank you,
Bye.
Wipke. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode today. If you know a friend or someone who might benefit from this as well, please do share it. And always feel free to rate my podcast with a 5-star review. Stay awesome and be well. Thank you.